Beneath the shifting sands and silent jungles, entire cities wait to be found. This journey uncovers 25 vanished civilizations, from drowned ports to desert capitals, all rediscovered in the world's most extreme places. By the end, you will understand the surprising patterns that caused these great societies to rise and fall. We will explore why a bustling Egyptian port sank beneath the waves and what secrets lie within a jungle empire's cloud kingdom. What do you believe is the true legacy of a lost world? There is a haunting beauty in a city reclaimed by the earth. It speaks to a deep curiosity within all of us, a desire to solve the grandest puzzles history has left behind. Each ruin is a crime scene where the victim is time itself, and we are the detectives, gathering clues scattered across centuries. We walk through broken streets not just to see old stones, but to listen to their silent stories of human ambition and incredible creativity. These places hold up a mirror to our own world, reminding us that the empires we build, no matter how powerful, are not built to last forever. They challenge us to wonder what future generations might one day find in our own silent streets. This profound connection to the past is the very heart of our journey, and it begins with a marvel swallowed by the sea. The ancient port of Heracleion was once the gateway to Egypt, a bustling metropolis where pharaohs were crowned and wealth from across the Mediterranean flowed. Then, one day, it simply vanished beneath the waves, leaving behind only legends. A diver's light cuts through the dark water, suddenly glinting off a stone face taller than a house. This colossal statue of a pharaoh stands silent guard on the seafloor, its regal features perfectly preserved after more than 1,000 years beneath the waves. This is Thonis-Heracleion, Egypt's legendary sunken gateway. For centuries, this city was nothing more than a rumor mentioned in ancient texts, a place where pharaohs were crowned and the wealth of the world passed through its bustling harbors. Then, in the late 1990s, marine archaeologist Frank Gaudio and his team found it. He described the moment as seeing a myth become reality, a ghost city materializing from the shadows of history. The city did not vanish in a single cataclysm but succumbed to a slower, more insidious fate. The very ground it was built on, a foundation of soft clay, gradually liquefied under the weight of its own grandeur. Compounded by rising sea levels and perhaps a powerful earthquake, the entire metropolis slowly sank into the Mediterranean around the 8th century AD, until the last of its great temples was swallowed by the sea. The same mud and sand that consumed it became its perfect preservative, creating an underwater time capsule frozen in time. Explorations have revealed the main temple of Amun-Jereb, the spiritual heart of the city. They have found the hulking wrecks of ancient ships that once tied up at its docks, their holds still filled with treasures and everyday goods. They have recovered gold coins and delicate jewelry, but perhaps most striking are the giant pharaonic statues, standing just as they fell, forever captured in their slow-motion descent to the seabed. This is not merely a collection of artifacts, it is a frozen moment of cultural exchange, a vibrant snapshot of Egyptian and Greek life intertwined at the crossroads of the ancient world. What other magnificent ports and trading hubs still lie hidden just out of sight beneath the shifting sands of the Mediterranean seafloor? From a city lost to water, we now journey to an empire hidden by a different kind of veil. High on a knife-edge ridge in the Andes, morning light cuts through the clouds to illuminate a city of stone. This is Machu Picchu, the Inca's breathtaking cloud kingdom, a place that seems to defy gravity and time itself. While American historian Hiram Bingham is often credited with its discovery in 1911, the truth is more complex. Local Quechua communities had always known of the overgrown citadel, a place they called home long before the outside world gave it a name. Bingham's expedition, guided by these local villagers, brought the site to global fame, revealing one of the most stunning architectural achievements in human history. Built around the middle of the 15th century as a royal estate for Emperor Pachacuti, this mountain retreat was a masterpiece of urban planning. Its sudden abandonment during the Spanish conquest left it hidden for centuries, slowly swallowed by a protective blanket of vines and jungle. Scholar Johann Reinhard proposed a compelling theory that its location was no accident. He believed the site was chosen for its profound sacred geography, carefully positioned to align with key mountain peaks that the Inca revered as gods. The architecture itself is a silent testament to genius. The Inca constructed entire buildings using a technique called ashlar masonry, where stones are cut to fit together so perfectly that not even a knife blade can slide between them. They built all of this without mortar, without the wheel, and without iron tools. Their method was pure precision, creating structures so stable they have withstood centuries of earthquakes that would level modern buildings. We see this brilliance in the agricultural terraces that cascade down the mountainside, a feat of engineering that prevented erosion and created microclimates for growing crops. We see it in the Intihuatana stone, an intricately carved ritual stone that functioned as an astronomical clock, precisely tracking the sun's movement throughout the year. This was far more than a royal getaway. Its strategic placement, its sacred alignments, and its sophisticated design fuel endless debates. Was it a secluded sanctuary for the empire's elite, a ceremonial center for communicating with the gods, or a final refuge for Inca priestesses? The most enduring question remains: how did they achieve such perfection in this impossibly remote and rugged location, moving massive granite blocks up near vertical slopes to create a city in the sky? Our search for answers now leads us from the misty peaks of Peru to the heart of another continent, where a different kind of lost city slept for centuries beneath a blanket of sand. A narrow canyon winds through towering cliffs of rose-red stone, its walls seeming to close in until, without warning, the passage opens. There, glowing in the desert sun, is a magnificent temple facade carved directly into the face of the mountain. This is Petra, the legendary capital of the Nabatean Empire, a city that did not just exist in the desert but conquered it. From the 4th century BC, this was the epicenter of the ancient world's most lucrative trade routes. Caravans laden with incense from Arabia, spices from India, and silks from China all converged here, their wealth transforming a barren canyon into a metropolis of unparalleled splendor. For centuries, its location was a closely guarded secret, known only to the Nabateans and the traders who journeyed there. Then, in 1812, Swiss explorer Johann Ludwig Burckhardt, disguised as an Arab scholar, convinced a local guide to lead him to the fabled site. He became the first Westerner in centuries to lay eyes on the lost city, reintroducing Petra to a world that had forgotten it entirely. The true genius of Petra, however, lies not in its grand monuments, but in its hidden infrastructure. In a landscape that receives only a few inches of rain each year, the Nabateans engineered a masterpiece of survival. They constructed a complex network of dams, cisterns, and channels that captured every precious drop of water from flash floods. This system directed the water through ceramic pipes into vast underground reservoirs, allowing the city to support a population of perhaps 30,000 people and lush gardens in the heart of the desert. This hydraulic engineering made their incredible architecture possible. The most iconic structure, the treasury, soars nearly 40 meters high, its columns and statues all painstakingly hammered and chiseled from the living rock. Further up the mountain, the monastery is an even larger feat, requiring climbers to ascend 800 steps to stand before its colossal entrance. Along the street of facades, hundreds of tombs display a unique fusion of styles, blending Hellenistic columns with Assyrian sculptures and Egyptian motifs, a testament to the city's role as a global crossroads. Petra's decline was as gradual as its rise was spectacular. A major earthquake in 363 AD shattered its vital water management system. As the Roman Empire shifted trade routes to sea-based networks, the caravans stopped coming, and the city's economic lifeblood dried up. By the 7th century AD, Petra was largely abandoned, its stone palaces and tombs left silent to the desert winds. Its story forces us to ask, what does it take for a civilization to not only survive but to flourish with such brilliance against impossible odds? From this stone city carved from the cliffs, our search for lost worlds plunges back into the deep, where another civilization rests in the quiet dark. The seabed off the coast of India holds the foundations of a city that was once considered pure myth. For centuries, the ancient texts of Hinduism spoke of a glorious capital called Dwarka, a city of gold and jewels ruled by the deity Lord Krishna. The sacred stories recount that upon Krishna's departure from the world, his magnificent city was consumed by the ocean, vanishing from sight but never from memory. For generations, this was understood as a spiritual allegory, not a historical account. Then, marine archaeologists began to pull proof from the water. In the Gulf of Cambay, teams from India's National Institute of Oceanography made a series of stunning discoveries. Their sonar scans revealed geometric patterns on the seafloor, the clear outlines of man-made structures. Subsequent dives brought up stone blocks, pottery shards, and artifacts like beads, all preserved in the deep silt. The most compelling evidence was the trace of an ancient river channel, indicating this was a planned settlement built along a waterway, just as the old texts described. Leading archaeologist Dr. S.R. Rao became a prominent voice, arguing that these ruins could be the remains of Krishna's legendary Dwarka. The most controversial aspect of the discovery is its potential age. Some estimates, based on artifacts and dredged wood samples, suggest the site could be up to 9,000 years old. If verified, this would place the city's origins thousands of years before the great civilizations of Mesopotamia and Egypt, radically challenging our entire timeline for the dawn of urban life. This is not merely an archaeological site. It is a place where faith and science converge, where a story passed down through generations is now being examined with underwater robots and carbon dating. The submerged walls of Dwarka force us to reconsider the very nature of legend. How many other sacred narratives, dismissed as mere fables, might be waiting patiently on the ocean floor for their turn to be rediscovered? Our journey now moves from a kingdom reclaimed by the sea to an empire entombed by the desert sands. The legends spoke of a city so wicked that it was swallowed by the desert sands as divine punishment. For generations, Bedouin storytellers passed down tales of Ubar, the Atlantis of the sands, a fortress of great pillars that vanished into a great sinkhole. These accounts, echoed in the Quran as Iram of the Pillars, described a hub of immense wealth built on the frankincense trade, a city that simply disappeared from the face of the earth around the 1st century AD. Many searched for it, but the shifting dunes of the Amani Desert guarded its secret well. The breakthrough came not from a lone adventurer with a map, but from the cold eye of technology looking down from the sky. In the 1990s, an unusual team formed, including explorer Sir Ranulph Fiennes and documentary filmmaker Nicholas Clapp. they turned to satellite imagery and radar, scanning the vast empty quarter for any sign of ancient roads. The technology revealed something astonishing: faint, ghostly lines cutting across the desert that were invisible from the ground. These were the remnants of ancient caravan routes, all converging on a single, specific point. Following these celestial maps, the expedition reached the site and began to dig. What they uncovered was a story of tragic irony. Ubar's greatness was its undoing. The city's incredible wealth came from controlling the trade of frankincense, a precious resin more valuable than gold in the ancient world. To support its population and its caravans, the people of Ubar relied on a complex system of wells and underground water channels. Over centuries, this relentless extraction of water from deep limestone caverns created a vast, hollow space directly beneath the city. The very infrastructure that sustained its life was secretly eroding its foundation. One day, the ground simply gave way. The central part of the fortress, including a massive tower, collapsed into a gigantic sinkhole, dragging the heart of the city into the abyss. Excavations revealed the stark evidence of this cataclysm. Walls and towers sheared off at sharp angles, plunging straight down into the earth. Among the ruins, archaeologists found the very source of Ubar's power: chambers filled with frankincense and artifacts related to the trade that built an empire of sand. The discovery of Ubar did more than just find another lost city. It validated centuries of oral tradition, proving that the legends held a kernel of geographical and historical truth. It demonstrated a powerful new model for discovery, where ancient stories and modern satellite technology could work in concert to solve history's greatest puzzles. How many other legendary trade metropolises, whose names are only whispers in old texts, remain hidden under the desert's shifting dunes, waiting for the right combination of tale and technology to bring them back into the light? Our path now leads from the desert's dry embrace to the humid, living walls of a jungle, where a ceremonial center of immense scale was lost to the world for 1,000 years. The deep silence of the Guatemalan rainforest is broken only by the guttural roar of howler monkeys, a sound that echoes through a city of stone. This is Tikal, the crown jewel of the classic Maya world, where pyramids pierce the jungle canopy like stone mountains. For over 700 years, from around 200 to 900 AD, this was a sprawling metropolis and a dominant military power, home to as many as 90,000 people at its peak. Its rediscovery by the outside world was a gradual process, beginning with Guatemalan officials who reported the ruins in the 1840s. Yet it was the massive excavations by the University of Pennsylvania in the 1950s and 60s that truly pulled Tikal from the green shadows, mapping its vast ceremonial core and restoring its grand plazas to something resembling their former glory. Walking through the Great Plaza today, you are surrounded by the evidence of its ambition. The towering structure known as Temple Roman IV is one of the tallest pre-Columbian buildings anywhere in the Americas, a launchpad for rulers to commune with the gods. But the city's true genius was not just in its heights, but in its depths. In a landscape with no natural lakes or rivers, Tikal's engineers designed a sophisticated system of reservoirs lined with waterproof cement. These massive basins captured rainwater during the seasonal downpours, storing it to sustain the enormous population through the long, dry months. This intricate water management system was the very foundation of its power. We know the names and deeds of its kings thanks to the painstaking work of epigraphers like David Stewart, who deciphered the stories carved into stone stelae. These hieroglyphs reveal a history of a powerful dynasty locked in a centuries-long struggle with its great rival, the city-state of Calakmul. This was not just a political conflict, but a total war of shifting alliances and devastating battles that drained the resources of both empires. Tikal's eventual collapse was as complex as its society. A prolonged period of severe drought, amplified by rampant deforestation to create plaster for their buildings, put unbearable strain on the water system. Constant warfare disrupted trade and agriculture, creating a perfect storm of crises. The city was slowly abandoned, its grand palaces and temples reclaimed by the relentless jungle, which preserved them for 1,000 years. This leaves us with a haunting question about the nature of civilization itself. How could a society so advanced in engineering, astronomy, and urban planning ultimately fall victim to the very environment it had so brilliantly manipulated? Our search for answers leads us from the dense rainforest to an entirely different wilderness, where a golden city was lost to the sands of time. Massive stone walls curve and climb across a sun-baked African plateau, a labyrinth of granite built without a single drop of mortar. This is Great Zimbabwe, the heart of a kingdom whose wealth and power echoed across the Indian Ocean from the 11th to the 15th centuries. As the largest ancient structure south of the Sahara Desert, its very existence challenged a deeply flawed narrative. When European explorers like Karl Marx first encountered these ruins in the late 19th century, they were captivated but also confounded. Their own prejudices made it impossible for them to accept that local African people could have engineered such grandeur. Instead, they invented fanciful origins, claiming the city must have been the work of the Phoenicians or even the biblical Queen of Sheba, a racist myth that archaeology would later systematically dismantle. The truth, revealed through decades of careful excavation, is far more impressive. The city's layout is a masterclass in ancient urban planning, divided into 3 distinct areas that reveal a complex society. The hill complex, perched on a granite dome, is thought to have been the spiritual and royal center, a place of ritual and power. Below it lies the stunning Great Enclosure, with its iconic 30-foot-high curved wall and a mysterious solid stone tower. This area was likely the royal residence, a private city within a city. Spread across the surrounding valley are the remains of mud brick houses that once sheltered the general populace, a clear indicator of a stratified society with a powerful ruling class. The proof of Great Zimbabwe's global reach was unearthed from its very soil. Archaeologists found Chinese celadon porcelain from the Ming dynasty, Persian glassware, and coins minted in Arab cities on the Swahili coast. These were not isolated trinkets but the everyday evidence of a thriving trade empire. This kingdom sat at the center of a vast network, funneling inland gold, ivory, and precious goods to coastal ports, where they were exchanged for luxuries from across the globe. Its decline around 1450 AD was not sudden but gradual. The most likely causes were a combination of overpopulation and the environmental exhaustion of the local farmland and resources. As the land could no longer support its people, and as trade routes possibly shifted to more favorable locations, the great stone city was slowly abandoned, its political and economic power dissipating back into the landscape from which it rose. The silent, soaring walls of Great Zimbabwe stand as a permanent rebuttal to those who would underestimate the ingenuity of pre-colonial Africa. They compel us to ask a profound question about our shared history. How many other magnificent achievements have been obscured or outright denied because they did not fit a narrow, preconceived version of the past? Our quest now descends from these sunlit stone heights into a far darker and more mysterious place, a city that did not just fall into ruin but was deliberately buried. A man swings a hammer to renovate his home, and a section of his wall crumbles away to reveal not just a room but an entire world plunging into darkness. This was the accidental discovery in 1963 that revealed Derinkuyu, a multi-level city carved deep into the soft volcanic rock of Turkey's Cappadocia region. This was not a simple cave or a single hiding place. It was a vast, self-contained subterranean metropolis capable of sheltering up to 20,000 people, a place where an entire population could vanish from the surface for months at a time. The earliest tunnels might have been dug by the Hittites nearly 4,000 years ago, but it was early Christians fleeing Roman persecution who expanded Derinkuyu into its most sophisticated form, creating a labyrinth of safety that descended an astonishing 280 feet into the earth. Stepping inside was like entering a geological fortress. The entrance tunnels were narrow and easily defensible, leading to massive, circular stone doors. These were not ordinary gates. Each one was a single, immense slab of rock, weighing hundreds of pounds and mounted on a central pivot. In times of danger, they could be rolled into place from the inside, sealing corridors so effectively that an army on the surface would never know a city thrived in the silence below. But how could so many people survive for so long in such a deep, confined space? The answer lies in an ancient masterpiece of engineering. Dozens of ventilation shafts, some stretching over 100 feet to the surface, provided a constant supply of fresh air to every level. Deep, hand-carved wells tapped into the underground water table, ensuring a reliable source of water. There were areas dedicated to pressing grapes for wine, rooms lined with huge ceramic jars for storing grain and oil, and even stables for livestock, all arranged across 18 distinct levels. There were churches with carved altars, communal kitchens, and countless living quarters, a complete society organized vertically in the earth. This was not a place of desperate survival, but one of careful, planned resilience. The existence of Derinkuyu forces us to reconsider the nature of safety. How many other communities throughout history, facing unimaginable threats, chose not to fight or flee, but to dig? How many other hidden cities, their rolling stone doors still sealed, remain asleep in the earth, holding the silent stories of those who sought refuge in the deep? Our journey now rises from this sunless sanctuary to a city lost to a different kind of obscurity, one swallowed not by rock, but by the relentless green of a forgotten jungle. The water is so clear you can trace the ghost of a city from the surface. Just off the coast of southern Greece, beneath the gentle waves, lie the oldest known submerged ruins in the entire world. This is Pavlopetri, a town so ancient it thrived for centuries before the events of Homer's Iliad over 5,000 years ago. Its discovery in 1967 by oceanographer Dr. Nicholas Fleming was just the beginning. Decades later, a team from the University of Nottingham returned with advanced technology to map every inch of the sunken settlement, revealing a complete Bronze Age town plan preserved in stunning detail. We are not looking at a few scattered foundations. We see the entire urban skeleton, a network of streets still cutting between the outlines of homes, workshops, and tombs. We can identify a central public area, perhaps a marketplace or a square for gatherings, and even discern the layout of a sophisticated water management system with channels and drains. This is not a ceremonial site or a fortress, but an entire working community, a blueprint for daily life in the prehistoric Aegean. The very catastrophe that destroyed the town also became its perfect protector. A series of earthquakes, possibly combined with a gradual rise in sea levels, caused the land to sink, submerging the city and sealing it under layers of sand and sediment. This underwater blanket preserved materials that would have vanished on land. Archaeologists have recovered not just stone and pottery, but also fragile organic artifacts like wooden tools and ceramic vessels that still bear the fingerprints of the people who made them. These are the intimate, everyday objects of a society that lived, worked, and traded here while the pyramids of Egypt were still young. The intact town plan of Pavlopetri is a time capsule of unparalleled importance. It allows us to understand how ordinary people organized their lives, how they moved through their world, and how they built a community from the ground up long before the concept of a city was ever defined. What fundamental truths about human society and urban design are lying in plain sight on that silent seafloor, waiting to be read like a map? Our path now turns from the clear Mediterranean waters to a far denser, more tangled environment, where a city was consumed not by water, but by the relentless green of the jungle. Stone channels stretch for miles through the Cambodian jungle, the veins of an empire that once commanded the rains. This is Angkor, the colossal heart of the Khmer Empire, a civilization that did not simply build in the jungle, but rebuilt the jungle itself into the most extensive pre-industrial city on Earth. At its zenith in the 12th century, this urban complex was home to nearly 1 million people, a scale unmatched until the modern industrial age. While French naturalist Henri Mauhat is credited with introducing its staggering temples to the Western world in 1860, the site was always known and tended by the local Khmers, a sacred landscape never truly forgotten by its own people. The true scale of Angkor's ambition, however, remained hidden until the advent of a revolutionary technology. Archaeologists began using LiDAR, a laser scanning system that can see through the dense forest canopy. The results were breathtaking. The scans revealed a sprawling, low-density metropolis covering an area larger than modern-day New York City, with suburbs, roadways, and canals seamlessly integrated into the landscape. This was not just a ceremonial center with a few supporting villages. It was a vast planned hydraulic empire. The entire city was engineered around water. At its center was the West Barre, a massive man-made reservoir stretching 5 miles long and over a mile wide. An intricate network of canals and smaller reservoirs distributed this precious water across the region, enabling farmers to produce 3 or even 4 crops of rice per year. This agricultural surplus was the engine of the empire, fueling its immense population and funding its monumental construction projects. The temples that rose from this plenty are among humanity's greatest architectural achievements. Angkor Wat, the largest religious monument in the world, is a microcosm of the Hindu universe rendered in stone, its soaring towers representing the mythical Mount Meru. The Bayon Temple, with its dozens of enormous, serene stone faces gazing out from every direction, projects the omnipresent power of a god-king. Yet this brilliance contained the seeds of its own vulnerability. The same complex water system that provided life became a source of fatal weakness. Decades of research by scientists like Dan Penny and Roland Fletcher suggest that the system grew too complex and too vast to maintain. Deforestation for agriculture led to severe erosion, which clogged the crucial canals with silt. When a series of intense droughts followed by devastating monsoons struck in the 14th and 15th centuries, the damaged infrastructure could not cope. The lifeblood of the empire turned against it, flooding what it was meant to irrigate and failing when water was most needed. The city was not suddenly abandoned, but gradually depopulated as its hydraulic heart failed, its political power shifting to other regions while the jungle slowly wove its green tapestry over the stone gods. How does a city of such staggering scale simply fade from the world's immediate memory? It reminds us that even the grandest human designs are ultimately in a delicate conversation with the environment they seek to command. From an empire that wrestled with water, we now journey to a kingdom that was claimed by it, a city that rests today in the silent, cold depths of a mountain lake. A pirate raises a glass of rum in a crowded tavern, and before the drink can touch his lips, the world tears itself apart. In the space of less than 2 minutes on June 7, 1692, a massive earthquake liquefied the sand beneath Port Royal, Jamaica, sending 2/3 of the most notorious city in the Americas sliding into Kingston Harbor. This was not a slow subsidence but a sudden, violent entombment. Known throughout the Caribbean as the wickedest city on earth, Port Royal was the unofficial capital of piracy, a bustling haven for privateers like Henry Morgan, and a thriving center of commerce built on sugar, slaves, and plunder. Its instantaneous descent into the sea was seen by many across the world not as a geological tragedy, but as a clear act of divine judgment upon a society drowned in its own vice. The very same sediment that swallowed the city became its perfect preserver. The oxygen-poor environment of the harbor floor created an anaerobic seal, protecting materials that would have normally rotted away centuries ago. Underwater excavations that began in the 1950s have uncovered a time capsule of stunning clarity. Archaeologists have mapped entire streets, found the remains of fortified military buildings, and peered into taverns where pewter tankards and clay pipes still sit on tables. They have recovered leather shoes, wooden barrels, and even the preserved remains of food, offering an intimate, almost eerie glimpse into the final moments of 17th century colonial life. One of the most poignant discoveries was a pocket watch, its hands frozen at exactly 11:43, silently marking the moment the earthquake struck and time stopped for Port Royal. The site provides a forensic snapshot of a society defined by extremes of wealth and poverty, piety and lawlessness. The artifacts tell a story of a booming port where vast fortunes were made from maritime trade and plunder, yet also a place of brutal exploitation and desperate living. This sudden cataclysm forces us to confront a difficult question. What does the manner of a city's end reveal about the character of the society that built it? For Port Royal, its legendary wickedness and its dramatic punishment are forever fused in its history, a stark reminder that the ground beneath our feet, both literally and morally, can shift in an instant. From a city of sin swallowed by the sea, we now seek out a place of sacred mystery lost to the mountains. Deep in the Belizean rainforest, the roots of a great ceiba tree curl like stone around the summit of a pyramid. This is Caracol, a Maya superpower that once brought an empire to its knees. While a local lumberman first reported the overgrown ruins to authorities in 1937, it would take decades of archaeological work to uncover the city's true scale and its shocking history of conquest. Excavations revealed a sprawling metropolis covering nearly 200 square kilometers, supporting a population that may have reached well over 100,000 people at its peak. But Caracol's most defining moment was not one of construction but of destruction. In the year 562, its armies waged a star war, a ritually timed attack against its colossal rival Tikal. The Caracol army delivered a devastating defeat, capturing and sacrificing Tikal's king. This single, calculated victory shattered Tikal's dominance for over a century and catapulted Caracol into a golden age of regional control. The evidence of its power still stands in the city's heart. The central pyramid, known as Kona or Sky Palace, rises 140 feet high, a monumental acropolis of palaces and temples that remains the tallest man-made structure in all of Belize even today. From its summit, the rulers of Caracol looked out over a kingdom they had built through both intellect and force. The story of this dynasty was painstakingly recovered not from the ground but from the stone. Epigraphers, scholars who decipher ancient writing, have translated the hieroglyphs on carved stelae and altars. These texts name powerful kings like Lord Water and Lord Can, detailing their military campaigns and their elaborate rituals to secure the favor of the gods. They reveal a society that combined sophisticated water management with agricultural terraces to support its vast population, a testament to brilliant adaptation. Yet, for all its martial and architectural might, Karakol ultimately shared the same mysterious fate as its rivals. Around the year 900, the city was slowly abandoned. The same factors that plagued Tikal likely conspired against Karakol as well: a deadly combination of prolonged drought, the environmental strain of overpopulation, and the constant, draining warfare that defined the era. The jungle did not destroy the city but embraced it, its dense foliage shielding the stonework from the elements and preserving Kana in remarkable condition for 1,000 years. The story of Karakol forces a difficult question. How much of a civilization's greatness is built upon its capacity for conflict? Its victory over Tikal secured its prosperity, yet the endless cycle of warfare may have ultimately drained the resources and resilience of the entire Maya world, leaving it vulnerable when the climate turned against them. From this rainforest kingdom defined by its rivalries, our search moves to a city whose greatest enemy was not another empire, but the shifting desert sands. A grand colonnaded avenue marches defiantly across the Syrian desert, its stone pillars framing a horizon of endless sand. This was Palmyra, the glorious oasis metropolis that turned isolation into immense power. Rising to prominence between the 1st and 3rd centuries AD, its location was its genius. It was the essential stopping point for caravans traveling the Silk Road, a place where Roman merchants, Persian artisans, and Arab tribesmen met to exchange goods, ideas, and customs. This was not a city that belonged to one empire, but a vibrant, independent hub that mastered the art of cultural fusion, creating an identity entirely its own. This unique spirit was personified in its legendary queen, Zenobia. In the 3rd century, she led a stunning revolt against the mighty Roman Empire, seizing control of vast territories, including Egypt, and declaring Palmyra an independent kingdom. For a brief, brilliant moment, she stood as a peer to Rome, a monarch who dared to challenge the world's greatest superpower. Her ambition, however, provoked a ferocious response. The Roman Emperor Aurelian rallied his legions, defeated her armies, and sacked the city in 2073 AD, bringing Queen Zenobia's reign to a dramatic end. The city's spectacular ruins, preserved for centuries by their remote desert location, told the story of this hybrid culture. The Temple of Bel fused Near Eastern and Greco-Roman architectural styles, a vast complex dedicated to a supreme god worshipped across cultures. The iconic monumental arch served as a grand gateway, its intricate carvings a testament to the wealth that flowed through its streets. Unlike cities that were forgotten, Palmyra was always known, its grandeur a constant whisper in historical records. Yet its modern fate is a tragic coda to its ancient story. Recent conflicts brought deliberate, catastrophic damage to its monuments, a devastating loss to our shared human heritage. The city's ultimate decline, however, began long before, with the Roman reassertion of control and, more critically, the slow shift of global trade routes away from the overland Silk Road. As ships began to carry the wealth of the world by sea, the caravan stopped coming, and the oasis slowly dried up, both in its wells and its economic lifeblood. This raises a profound question about the nature of power. How does a city's geographical position, the very source of its wealth and influence, also become the anchor that dictates its ultimate fate? From a desert crossroads starved by changing trade, we now travel to a city whose lifeblood was cut off by a far more immediate and violent force. A silent stone circle stands on the seafloor, its purpose as mysterious as the village that built it. This is Atlat Yam, a prehistoric settlement submerged off the coast of Israel that rewrites our understanding of the dawn of civilization. Dating back to around 7000 BC, this is not a city of palaces, but a village of profound firsts, a Neolithic community that thrived for centuries before vanishing beneath the Mediterranean. Discovered by marine archaeologists in 1984, the site presents a breathtakingly complete picture of a momentous human transition. We see the foundations of stone houses arranged as a small community. We find deep, stone-lined wells that once provided fresh water, and a stunning semicircle of massive standing stones, the world's oldest known megalithic structure, arranged with clear intention. The most haunting finds are the human remains, skeletons that show the earliest known evidence of tuberculosis, a disease that likely spread in these early, settled communities. This underwater time capsule was sealed by a slow-motion catastrophe. As the last ice age receded, global sea levels began their relentless climb. This process, combined with local tectonic shifts that may have caused the land to sink, gradually inundated the village over generations. The very water that provided its food and trade routes eventually claimed it, preserving a snapshot of a revolutionary way of life. The evidence of that revolution is etched into the seabed. Archaeologists have recovered the bones of domesticated sheep, goats, and cattle, alongside stores of processed grains like emmer wheat and barley. This is the smoking gun of the Neolithic Revolution, the moment humanity shifted from hunting and gathering to controlling their food supply through farming. Atlat-Yam is a pristine record of that pivotal change, a community that had mastered agriculture and animal husbandry, laying the foundational stones for all the cities that would follow. This was not a simple existence. The construction of the megalithic stones, which weigh several tons each, required coordinated labor and a shared belief system, suggesting a complex social structure. They were engineers of their environment, digging wells and planning their village with an eye toward permanence. Yet their success in settling down also brought new vulnerabilities, from the spread of disease to their ultimate vulnerability to a changing climate. What does this sunken village tell us about our own foundations? It reveals that the very pillars of civilization, agriculture, and community were born alongside profound new challenges. How many other cradles of human society now lie beneath the waves, holding the untold stories of our first great leap forward? Our path now leads from this ancient submerged world to a city lost to a different kind of force, one not of nature but of human conflict. A silent grid of streets points toward an empty horizon in a city built with mathematical precision. This is Mohenjo-Daro, the Mound of the Dead, a metropolis of the ancient Indus Valley that thrived over 4,000 years ago. While the ruins were officially identified in the 1920s by archaeologist Rakhul Das Banerjee, the civilization that built it remains one of history's most profound enigmas. Walking through its excavated sectors is an uncanny experience, like stepping into a modern urban plan from a forgotten age. The city was laid out on a strict grid pattern, with wide main streets and narrow lanes, all intersecting at perfect right angles. This was not a settlement that grew organically. It was designed, a testament to a central authority with a powerful vision for orderly living. The sophistication is staggering. Nearly every house contained a bathing area with a drain, and an extensive, covered sewer system ran beneath the streets, a level of public sanitation that would not be seen again in many parts of the world for thousands of years. At the city's heart stands the Great Bath, a watertight pool built with finely fitted bricks and a layer of natural tar. This was likely a ritual center, a place for ceremonial purification that underscores the cultural importance of water and cleanliness. A massive, raised structure is often interpreted as a granary, suggesting a highly organized system for collecting and redistributing food. Even the bricks are a clue. They were manufactured in standardized, uniform ratios, a level of consistency that implies centralized production and a common unit of measurement across the entire Indus Valley. Yet for all this evidence of complex organization, there is a startling absence. Archaeologists have found no grand palaces, no monumental statues of kings, no elaborate royal tombs filled with treasure. There are no obvious temples dedicated to a single, powerful deity. This presents a fascinating puzzle. How did a society achieve such remarkable urban harmony without the clear, autocratic ruler or the priest-king class we see in Egypt or Mesopotamia? Was it governed by a council of elders, or perhaps a class of merchant oligarchs who valued collective well-being over individual glorification? The deepest silence comes from their writing. The Indus Valley script, found on thousands of small seals and tablets, remains completely undeciphered. We see the symbols often accompanied by images of animals and mythical beasts, but we cannot hear the words. Their language, their names, their laws, and their stories are locked away, leaving us to interpret their entire world through the silent architecture they left behind. Then, around 1900 BC, this great city was abandoned. The streets fell silent, the wells filled with dust. The theories for its end are as mysterious as its governance. Some point to climate change, suggesting that the slow drying up of the Gaga-Hakra river system, the lifeblood of the region, turned fertile land into desert. Others propose invasions by nomadic tribes, though the archaeological evidence for widespread violence is curiously thin. The city simply seems to have been gradually depopulated, its people scattering to smaller villages until its grand design was forgotten under the silt. Mohenjo-Daro forces a fundamental question. Why would a civilization so advanced in urban planning, so meticulous in its engineering, vanish so completely from human memory that its very existence had to be rediscovered millennia later? It challenges the traditional narrative that civilization was born solely in the Fertile Crescent, revealing a third, equally brilliant cradle in the Indus Valley, whose quiet sophistication we are only beginning to appreciate. Our search for answers now pushes east, into a jungle where a different kind of empire left its mark on the landscape. A great city's history can be written in stone, but in Kapon it was carved. The dense Honduran jungle here is a gallery of fallen kings, where towering stone stelae rise from the earth like solemn sentinels, their surfaces covered in intricate portraits and hieroglyphs slowly being pried apart by the gentle, relentless fingers of tree roots. This was the sculptural capital of the Maya world, a center where art, science, and politics were inseparably fused. While its ruins were never truly lost to the local communities, it was the vivid writings of American explorer John Lloyd Stevens and the breathtaking illustrations of his companion, artist Frederick Catherwood, that unveiled this wonder to a global audience in the 1840s. Their published works presented Kapon not as a savage ruin, but as the legacy of a sophisticated civilization, forever changing the Western world's perception of the ancient Americas. The city's most staggering achievement is the hieroglyphic stairway, a monumental staircase of 63 steps containing over 2,000 individual glyphs. It is the longest known pre-Columbian text, a grand dynastic narrative commissioned by a king to immortalize the lineage of his rulers, their military victories, and their sacred rituals. Each step is a page in a stone book, telling the story of Kapon's divine kings across generations. Yet this masterpiece also reveals a city constantly building upon its own past. The Great Acropolis is a man-made mountain of temples and plazas, and archaeological tunnels dug deep inside it reveal a stunning truth. earlier pyramids and royal courts are entombed within the later structures, a physical layering of history where each new ruler sought to outdo his ancestors by literally encasing their legacy within his own. This created a vertical timeline, a chronicle of power written not on paper, but in compacted rubble and plaster. For centuries, this focus on artistic brilliance and astronomical precision, recorded on stelae that also functioned as sophisticated calendars, seemed to be the source of Kapan's strength. But this very focus may have contributed to its downfall. The demand for limestone to produce the plaster for all these monuments and temples led to widespread deforestation of the surrounding hillsides. This environmental degradation, visible in soil samples taken from the nearby river, triggered severe erosion that crippled the agricultural base that fed the city's population. By the time of its last known king, a ruler named Yak's Passage, the city was straining under the weight of its own grandeur, its resources depleted and its political authority crumbling. The final monuments were left unfinished, the royal dynasty simply faded away, and the jungle began its slow, patient reclamation. Kapan stands as a powerful paradox. It asks us whether a society's greatest cultural achievements, its art, its science, its grand monuments, can ever become a liability, diverting vital resources and attention from the fundamental systems that keep a civilization alive. How much of a city's soul is reflected in the beauty it leaves behind, and at what cost is that beauty created? Our search for lost cities now plunges beneath the surface of a vast, tranquil lake, where a different kind of grandeur rests in the silent, cold dark. A diver descends into the deep, clear waters of Lake Atitlan, where the light fades to a soft blue and the silence is absolute. There, on the lake floor, he finds not scattered pottery, but the bones of an entire ceremonial village. This is Submerged, a sacred Maya site that now rests 100 feet below the surface, a spiritual center lost to the deep. A local diver named Roberto Samayoa discovered the site in 1996 during a recreational dive, his find transforming a legendary local tale of a sunken church into an archaeological reality. Dating to the pre-classic period, this village was not a grand city, but a pilgrimage site, an island of ritual that thrived centuries before the rise of mighty powers like Tikal. The village layout is a snapshot of early Maya spiritual life. Archaeologists mapping the site have identified stone platforms designed for public ceremonies, upright stone monuments known as stelae that likely bore carvings of rulers or gods, and the foundations of domestic structures for the priests and caretakers who maintained this holy place. The cold, fresh water of the volcanic lake acted as a perfect preservative, protecting the organic remains of wooden posts and delicate offerings that would have vanished on land. The question of how this island sank is a puzzle of geology and water. The most compelling theory suggests that the very volcanic forces that created the lake's breathtaking basin were also its undoing. Sometime around 2,000 years ago, either a volcanic eruption or a massive landslide blocked the lake's natural outlets, or perhaps caused a section of the island itself to collapse. The water level rose dramatically, perhaps over just a few generations, slowly and inexorably swallowing the ceremonial plazas and homes. This was not a sudden, violent cataclysm like an earthquake, but a creeping inevitability that gave the inhabitants time to leave, but forced them to abandon their most sacred objects where they lay. This gives Submerged an unparalleled authenticity. Because the flooding was a gradual process, there was no looting, no later construction built over the ruins. The artifacts found on the platforms and in the buildings were left exactly as they were when the last ceremonies were performed. It is a moment frozen in time, a sealed window into the spiritual world of the early Maya, undisturbed by the rise and fall of the empires that would follow. This sacred island, built in a place of immense natural beauty and power, forces us to wonder, why would a community choose such a seemingly vulnerable location for its most important rituals? The answer likely lies in the Maya worldview, where lakes were not just bodies of water but sacred portals to the underworld, places of immense spiritual power. They built their sanctuary not in spite of the water, but because of it, seeking to commune with the gods in a liminal space between the earth and the deep. Their chosen connection to the elemental world ultimately became the very force that preserved their legacy for 2 millennia. From a spiritual center claimed by water, our journey now ventures into the heart of a desert, where a different kind of city was slowly erased from memory by the shifting sands. A field of nearly 200 pyramids rises from the desert sands, their steep, sharp angles a stark silhouette against the Sudanese sky. This is Meroe, the capital of a kingdom so powerful it once conquered its legendary neighbor, Egypt. While the local communities never forgot these monuments, it was the accounts of European travelers like Frédéric in the 1820s that brought them to global attention, revealing a civilization that had rivaled the pharaohs on their own terms. From the 8th to the 4th centuries BC, the kingdom of Kush, with Meroe as its heart, was a force to be reckoned with, even ruling Egypt as its 25th dynasty. The city's power was forged in fire. Massive mounds of iron slag, the waste from smelting, still dot the landscape today, testament to an industrial might that turned this region into the ancient equivalent of a manufacturing powerhouse. They produced weapons and tools on an immense scale, fueling both their economy and their military ambitions. Yet Meroe was far more than a copy of Egypt. It was a vibrant cultural fusion. They worshipped their own gods alongside Egyptian deities, and they developed their own unique script, known as Meroitic. This writing system, found on countless stelae and temple walls, remains a locked door to history, its meaning just beyond our grasp, preventing us from hearing the kingdom's story in its own words. The city's decline was a slow unraveling. The very industry that built its wealth, the relentless demand for charcoal to fuel its iron furnaces, led to widespread deforestation, stripping the land of its protective cover. At the same time, the rising power of the Aksumite Empire in Ethiopia began to dominate the lucrative trade routes that had been Meroe's lifeblood. Squeezed by environmental degradation and economic competition, the great capital slowly faded, its political influence waning until the desert sands began their patient reclamation. The story of Meroe forces us to ask a difficult question about historical memory. How does a civilization, one that once ruled over its more famous neighbor, become a footnote in its own story? It challenges the simplistic narrative of a single cradle of civilization, revealing a world with multiple, interconnected centers of power, each with its own legacy waiting to be fully understood. Our journey now turns from a kingdom that faded over centuries to a city that met its end in a single, terrifying instant. The ground shook with a violence that seemed to tear the world apart. In the winter of 373 BC, the prosperous Greek city of Helike, a powerful member of the Achaean League, was utterly erased in a single night. Ancient historians like Strabo and Diodorus Siculus recorded the catastrophe, describing how a massive earthquake was followed moments later by a colossal tsunami from the Gulf of Corinth. The entire city, they wrote, was submerged, and every one of its citizens perished. For centuries, Helike became a ghost, a cautionary tale used by philosophers and poets to speak of the gods' wrath against human pride. Its physical location, however, faded into legend, leaving many to wonder if it was merely a myth, a prototype for the story of Atlantis. The breakthrough came from a determined blend of old texts and new science. In the late 1980s, a team of Greek archaeologists and geologists, led by Dora Katsonopoulou and Stephen Soter, began a systematic search. They pored over the ancient descriptions and used core drilling to probe the coastal plain. Their persistence paid off. They found the remains of Helike not on the seafloor, but buried deep beneath layers of silt and gravel, deposited there by the tsunami and subsequent river flooding. The city had been drowned, then sealed in a muddy tomb. Excavations slowly revealed a snapshot of classical Greece frozen in a moment of terror. They uncovered the foundations of buildings, pottery workshops, and a metalworking furnace, all arranged along the lines of a typical city plan. They found coins minted in the city and bronze coins that had been stored in a jar, a small treasure hidden by someone who never returned. The most poignant discoveries were the small, everyday objects, a loom weight, a cooking pot, that spoke of lives interrupted without warning. The confirmed fate of Helike does more than just validate an ancient story. It provides a plausible, historical foundation for the legend of Atlantis, a tale of an advanced and powerful civilization punished by the gods and swallowed by the sea in a single day and night. Helike's destruction was so complete and so sudden that it seared itself into the Greek consciousness, becoming a powerful moral lesson about the fragility of human achievement in the face of nature's indiscriminate power. How does a single natural disaster erase a city from memory? It demonstrates that when the physical evidence is buried or washed away, all that remains is the story, a whispered warning that can, over time, blur the line between history and myth. Our search now takes us from this classical tragedy to a jungle city where the architecture itself seems to defy logic. Graceful limestone temples rise from a sea of emerald green, their slender forms and intricate carvings speaking of a civilization that valued beauty as much as power. This is Palenque, a Mayan gem tucked into the misty foothills of Chiapas, Mexico, a city that feels less like a ruin and more like a sacred sanctuary. While its existence was always known to the local Mayan people, it was the magnificent descriptions and illustrations by explorers John Lloyd Stephens and Frederick Catherwood in the 1840s that captured the world's imagination, revealing a sight of breathtaking artistry that had been sleeping under a blanket of vines for centuries. The city's soul is inextricably linked to one man, its most famous ruler, Pakal the Great. He ascended the throne as a boy and ruled for an astonishing 68 years, a reign that transformed Palenque into a center of architectural and cultural brilliance. His legacy was sealed in 1952 when archaeologist Alberto Ruz Lulia made a discovery that would rewrite Maya history. After noticing a hidden stairway beneath a stone slab in the Temple of the Inscriptions, his team spent 4 years carefully clearing the rubble-filled passage. At the bottom, they found Pakal's burial chamber, a crypt deep within the pyramid's heart. The king lay in a massive, intricately carved stone sarcophagus, his face covered by a jade mosaic mask surrounded by precious offerings. This was the first time a Maya pyramid had been confirmed as a royal tomb, proving these structures were not just temples, but also magnificent mausoleums for god-kings, forever linking celestial power with mortal rulers. The architecture of Palenque itself is a study in elegance. Unlike the massive, blocky structures of other Maya cities, its buildings possess a unique lightness and grace. The palace complex is a labyrinth of courtyards, galleries, and subterranean passages, crowned by a distinctive 4-story tower that may have served as an astronomical observatory. The buildings are adorned with stunning stucco reliefs, delicate sculptures molded from plaster that depict gods, rituals, and courtly life with a fluid, almost 3-dimensional quality. Soaring above the temples are the iconic roof combs, intricate stone lattices that acted like billboards, displaying elaborate scenes of royal authority against the sky. These were not mere decorations. They were sophisticated structural elements that gave the tall, vaulted buildings both stability and a breathtaking silhouette. The story of Palenque is not locked in silence. Its hieroglyphic texts, painstakingly deciphered by epigraphers like Linda Scheel, provide one of the most complete historical records of any Maya city. We can read the names of its kings and queens, follow their wars and strategic alliances with cities like Tonana and Calakmul, and understand their complex religious rituals. We know of Pakal's mother, Lady Sakkayuk, who ruled as regent before his ascension, a powerful woman who ensured the continuity of their dynasty. This wealth of inscription turns cold stone into a vibrant chronicle of a living, breathing society. Set where the dense jungle meets the rolling mountains, the city's mystical aura is palpable. The sound of howler monkeys and flowing water provides a constant, haunting soundtrack. This profound connection to its natural setting is a key to its enduring appeal. Palenque does not feel conquered by the jungle, but peacefully integrated with it, a place where human genius and the wild beauty of the earth exist in a silent, powerful dialogue. Why do some abandoned cities capture our imagination more than others? Perhaps it is not just their scale or their power, but their soul. Palenque's combination of artistic grace, a deeply personal royal story, and a profoundly spiritual setting makes it feel less like a lost capital and more like a timeless work of art. Our journey now leaves this lush sanctuary for a city that faced a far harsher environment, a metropolis that was lost to the desert sands for a full millennium. A city's wealth was measured not just in gold, but in the very stones of its ancestors. In the Nile Delta, the lost capital of Tanis rose to power by cannibalizing the past. For centuries, its sprawling ruins were a puzzle to early Egyptologists, often mistaken for the more famous Ramesside capital of Pi Ramesses. The confusion was understandable. The kings of Tanis, ruling during Egypt's 21st and 22nd dynasties, had systematically dismantled the nearby, abandoned city of Pi Ramesses and hauled its magnificent inscribed blocks, statues, and obelisks to build their own new northern capital. They were constructing their legacy with the plundered glory of a forgotten age. Then, in 1939, on the eve of a world war, French archaeologist Pierre Montet made a discovery that would finally pull Tanis from the shadows. While excavating within the city's main temple enclosure, his team found a hidden corner of the necropolis that had miraculously escaped the notice of thieves for nearly 3,000 years. They uncovered the intact royal tombs of pharaohs like Susens I, their burial chambers sealed and waiting. This was not a single find, but a collection of them, a discovery of such staggering wealth that it rivals the more famous tomb of Tutankhamun. Inside, they found solid silver coffins, exquisite gold masks, and jewelry of lapis lazuli and carnelian that glittered in the torchlight. A silver coffin itself was a statement of immense power, as silver was often considered more rare and valuable than gold in ancient Egypt. Yet for all its royal splendor, Tanis could not fight the slow, inexorable forces of nature. The city's lifeblood was a now vanished branch of the Nile. Over centuries, this distributary channel slowly silted up, its waters choked with sediment. The great port that had connected the capital to Mediterranean trade routes became a marsh and then a desert. Without its waterway, the city's commercial and military importance evaporated. The political power shifted south, and Tanis was gradually abandoned, its grand temples and reused obelisks left to the encroaching sand. The story of Tanis forces us to consider the fluid nature of power and memory. How does a capital city, filled with the treasures of kings and the repurposed monuments of empires, simply fade from the world's awareness? It demonstrates that a city can be built from the physical remnants of its predecessor, yet still be utterly vulnerable to the changing landscape it depends on for survival. From a capital reclaimed by the desert, we now venture into a wilderness of a different kind. Massive stone heads stare out from the high plains of Bolivia, their expressions weathered but their gaze eternal. This is Tiwanaku, the spiritual and political heart of a pre-Incan empire that dominated the Andes for 500 years. Perched at a breathtaking altitude of over 12,000 feet near the shores of Lake Titicaca, this city was already a magnificent ruin by the time the Inca Empire rose to power, its original name and the stories of its people lost to time. The Spanish conquistadors who arrived in the 16th century recorded the local Aymara legends, which spoke of Tiwanaku as the place where the god Viracocha created the world, a site of such profound antiquity that its own origins had faded into myth. The scale of its construction defies easy explanation. The Acapona Pyramid, a massive stepped platform that likely represented a sacred mountain, was engineered with complex internal drainage systems to handle torrential rains. The most iconic structure, the Sun Gate, is a single, intricately carved block of andesite stone weighing many tons, covered with a complex celestial calendar depicting winged figures and astronomical symbols. This was not merely decoration. It was a sophisticated map of the cosmos, evidence of a deep understanding of the solar year and the movement of stars, knowledge essential for agriculture and religious ceremony in such an unforgiving landscape. The true mystery lies in the craftsmanship. How did they carve these monumental stones with such precision, creating perfectly flat surfaces and intricate reliefs using only stone tools? Even more perplexing, how did they transport these colossal blocks, some weighing over 100 tons, from quarries many miles away across the rugged Altiplano? The most accepted theory suggests the use of llama fiber ropes and large groups of laborers, but the exact methods remain one of the great engineering puzzles of the ancient Americas. The empire's end was as dramatic as its monuments. Around 1000 AD, a prolonged and severe drought lasting for generations desiccated the region. The water level of Lake Titicaca dropped significantly, crippling the raised field agricultural system that fed the city's vast population. These fields, known as suca collas, were a masterpiece of hydraulic engineering, channels that used water from the lake to create microclimates immune to frost, allowing for incredibly bountiful harvest. When the rains failed and the lake receded, this intricate system collapsed. Famine and social upheaval likely followed, scattering the population and leaving the grand capital to the wind and the thin, cold air. Tiwanaku stands as a stark reminder that human ingenuity can conquer the most extreme environments, yet it remains forever vulnerable to the whims of a changing climate. How does a society not only survive but achieve such architectural and astronomical brilliance at the very roof of the world? Its silent, stoic stones hold the answer, a testament to a civilization that reached for the sky, only to be brought low by the earth itself. Our search now descends from these high plains to a city that suffered a far more sudden and violent fate, one that plunged it into the silent, cold embrace of the sea. The legend of a city drowned for its pride echoes across the cold, shallow waters of the Wadden Sea. For centuries, fishermen told tales of Rungholt, a wealthy Frisian trading port consumed by the waves as divine punishment for the arrogance of its people. They spoke of hearing church bells ringing from beneath the mudflats during storms, a ghostly reminder of a vanished world. This northern Atlantis was long considered a moral fable, until the 20th century, when the receding tide began to reveal its bones. Archaeologists walking the exposed seabed at low tide found the faint but undeniable outlines of a lost community. They mapped the ghostly impressions of field boundaries, the rings of old wells, and recovered everyday artifacts that confirmed a sobering truth. The legend was rooted in a real and terrible historical event. Rungholt was a victim of the Groot Mandrank, the Great Drowning of Men, a catastrophic storm tide that struck in 1362. This single, ferocious event shattered the coastline, overwhelming the region's system of dikes and mounds and claiming tens of thousands of lives. The bustling port, with its merchants and their worldly goods, was simply erased from the map, its memory preserved only in the cautionary tales of survivors. The search for Rungholt is a race against time and tide. Each storm that sweeps across the mudflats can both reveal and destroy, washing away sediment to expose a new artifact while simultaneously eroding the very site it uncovers. Researchers continue to find evidence of dwellings and workshops, piecing together the life of a town that learned the hard way that human prosperity is no match for the raw power of the sea. Its story forces a difficult question. How many of our oldest legends are not pure fiction, but desperate, distorted memories of real catastrophes, passed down through generations as a warning? The whispers from the Wadden Sea suggest that sometimes the most enduring myths are the ones etched in tragedy. From a city lost to the sea's fury, our search turns to a kingdom consumed by the jungle's patience. Deep within the dense Patane jungle, a pyramid rises like a man-made mountain, its summit lost in the canopy. This is El Mirador, the city of the great jaguar paw, a metropolis so ancient that it was already a ruin when the kings of Tikal first came to power. Flourishing for over 700 years, from roughly 600 BC to 100 AD, this was the true cradle of Maya civilization, a place where the very blueprint for their society was first drafted on a monumental scale. Its remote location, one of the most challenging to reach in all of Mesoamerica, kept its secrets closely guarded by the jungle for over a millennium. The city's true immensity was only revealed through modern aerial surveys and the grueling expeditions of archaeologists who pieced together a map of staggering ambition. The heart of this ambition is the Ladanta complex, a towering acropolis that is one of the largest pyramids in the entire world by volume. Its construction required moving millions of tons of stone and earth, an almost unimaginable feat of communal labor and organization for a society so early in its development. The sheer scale of this project speaks of a powerful, centralized authority capable of marshaling its people to create a structure meant to dominate both the landscape and the human spirit. The city's layout reveals a sophisticated urban plan, with causeways radiating out to connect it to smaller satellite sites, forming one of the first Maya regional states. This early florescence and its subsequent mysterious collapse around 100 AD completely upend the old idea of a simple, linear progression for civilizations. El Mirador proves that the Maya did not slowly evolve toward complexity. They achieved it in a spectacular, explosive burst of genius, creating a template of kingship and cosmic order that would echo for centuries. Then, for reasons we are still piecing together, this great city was abandoned. The leading theory points to a combination of environmental degradation and drought. The very act of building on such a scale, of clearing vast tracts of forest for agriculture and burning wood to make plaster for their pyramids, may have fatally undermined the region's ecosystem. The society that could move mountains of stone could not withstand the slow, creeping pressure of a changing climate. Its people likely dispersed, its royal dynasty faded, and the jungle began its patient, centuries-long work of swallowing the stone temples whole. The silent, brooding presence of El Mirador forces a profound question about the very nature of ambition. What drives a civilization at its very dawn to reach for such impossible heights, to build structures so vast they seem to challenge the gods themselves? Our final journey takes us from this ancient jungle cradle to the last city on our list, a golden metropolis whose fate was sealed by the desert. High, sun-baked walls enclose a city of gods, their stone faces looking out in all directions. This is Hatra, a fortress of faith and commerce that stood unyielding in the Iraqi desert. As a major hub of the Parthian Empire, its wealth was legendary, drawn from the caravan routes that connected the east and west. Its true claim to fame, however, was its defiance. In the 2nd century AD, the mighty Roman Empire, at the peak of its power, laid siege to Hatra not once but twice. And both times, the city's formidable double walls and determined defenders repelled the legions, a stunning feat that cemented its reputation as an impregnable desert stronghold. The ruins that gained wider recognition in the 19th and 20th centuries tell the story of this cultural fusion. The Grand Temple of Shamash, dedicated to the sun god, soars with a facade of columns that would look at home in Greece, yet its overall form and the deities worshipped within are distinctly Mesopotamian. Walk through its sacred precincts and you find statues draped in Parthian dress standing beside architectural elements borrowed from Rome and artistic motifs from Persia. This was not a city that chose one influence over another. It absorbed them all, creating a unique identity that was entirely its own, a testament to the power of a commercial crossroads where ideas were traded as freely as spices and silk. This vibrant synthesis, however, could not save it forever. In 241 AD, the rising Sasanian Empire, a new Persian power, breached its legendary defenses. The city was sacked and systematically destroyed, its political and economic reason for existence wiped away. Left to the desert, it became a ghost, its grand temples slowly yielding to the sand. In our own time, conflict has brought new devastation, with deliberate damage inflicted upon its ancient structures, a stark reminder that these places remain vulnerable long after their original fall. Hatra's story forces a final, powerful question for our journey. How does a city's very soul form at the intersection of so many worlds? It proves that the most resilient identities are not forged in isolation, but through a courageous embrace of difference, a blending that creates something stronger and more unique than any single influence could alone. This concludes our list of 25, but the story of lost cities is far from over. These vanished cities, scattered across deserts and submerged beneath seas, are not isolated tragedies but chapters in a single, sprawling story of human ambition. A clear pattern emerges from their silent stones, a cycle of rise and fall that repeats across continents and millennia. The most relentless force in this cycle is environmental change. We saw it in Tikal and Angkor, where brilliant water management systems were ultimately defeated by drought and silt. We witnessed it in Merodach, where the demand for charcoal stripped the land bare, and in Ubar, where the quest for water hollowed out the earth itself. A changing climate was not a backdrop to their stories, it was the final, unyielding judge. Just as critical was the flow of commerce. A city's lifeblood could be cut off not by an army, but by a shifting map. Petra and Palmyra withered when trade routes moved to the sea, their caravans replaced by ships. Great Zimbabwe's global connections faded when new ports emerged, leaving its stone walls as a monument to an economy that had moved on. Their wealth, built on geography, evaporated when that geography no longer mattered. Then there is the drama of human conflict, the sudden, violent end. Port Royal was swallowed in an instant, Hilike erased by tsunami, and Hatra finally fell to a besieging army. These cities remind us that collapse can arrive not as a slow decay, but as a single, catastrophic day. Yet perhaps the most haunting pattern is the slow unraveling, the internal flaw. The very innovations that defined a civilization's greatness often planted the seeds of its destruction. The intricate water systems of Angkor grew too complex to maintain. The monumental building projects of Khmer and El Mirador demanded deforestation that crippled their farmland. Their greatest achievements became their fatal vulnerabilities. So what do these silent cities tell us about our own bustling world? They are not ruins from a distant, irrelevant past. They are mirrors. They ask us to look at our own dependence on fragile supply chains, our own strain on water resources, and our own complex systems that could falter under stress. The story of these 25 cities is a profound lesson in humility. It suggests that the true measure of a society's greatness may not be the height of its pyramids, but the resilience of its foundations and the wisdom of its relationship with the world it builds upon. Our journey through these 25 lost cities reveals a profound truth about the impermanence of human achievement. Each sunken port and jungle-shrouded temple stands as a monument to ambition, yet their silent stones speak more eloquently of the incredible resilience of memory itself. We are driven by a deep, enduring need to uncover our past, to piece together the grand puzzle of human history, one rediscovered city at a time. These places teach us that no civilization, no matter how powerful, exists in a vacuum. They are all deeply woven into a larger ecological and historical context, their fates tied to the water they managed, the trade routes they depended on, and the environmental balance they maintained. Their stories challenge us to learn from both their brilliant successes and their catastrophic failures. The explorer Thor Heyerdahl once observed that progress is man's ability to complicate simplicity. Perhaps within these vanished cities, we can rediscover simpler truths about our own place in the world, about the fundamental needs for community, water, and a sustainable relationship with the planet we call home. If these stories of discovery have captivated you, consider subscribing for more journeys into history's greatest mysteries. We would love to hear which of these vanished cities intrigues you the most. Share your